Well, some of the clocks say time to begin. Slowly recite even the Heart Sutra.
Lana meba lada mena je dumba sanje jonde le peje wa shakya tuba la chate jodo jaso je dumba jonde le deje jeba da jomba yanda bar sobe sanje peba da jaso demba devar sheba jine jemba jevu duve kalu jup Lana meba hada menam je jamba sanje jomde de beje chaja tuba la jaze lo chodo jaze je jamba jomde de beje la jamba yanda ba zobe sanje re ba da jazo de ma de warashi jide jamba je wo duve kalo juba lana meba hata menam jamba sanje jonde de beje wa jaja tuba la jade jodo jazo je kande gani so che la de saje ne la gomba du ne mane jige de na cho che so de ze che bo che la cha nanda bo cho de su sa yi xin jia zo de ge de bo Taba jide suna lame pombo chuni chola chade senjo dembo time dave ja sendo chawa chola chade duje suna seba suna ji nyame chuni chola chade gombo tuje jende ba tamje jembe de babu Sana yende jazo je de she la jade dabe de jade wa yu gewe ne zo le chuje che do de na ju ju ba ji yu je la jade ro ne ro ve la ya de la ba da la ra de Shingi damba yende de gindu la ya chade. Deba chi ame ja shi girwa pusum sopa ja. Rangi sene yonzu du tene sange tenba yin. Kama rari mame da gyuma seba chura. Melamo lodan jinda bu düce cünan didarata. Sonan diye tamce sibayi goban töne gence tadı. Gada nada çive lapule sibe tot. Rova rova şo.
To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct. Sugata, now the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent, destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakti clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you, who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, faded like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realization, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death.
Aba kunjo soma ja zelo dige dage tebo je no jole yego kap jago bumbo kenonge gendu chembo da janjo sebe gendu chembo da atawa chedu jule de tse jomde de zamo na wa shejawe cheje nandra ge tengen ze nyoboro shuso na de tse janjo zamba zamba jembo baba jere ze wanju bu chembo samo cheba nila namba tashi kumbo ngabo de ta laya ajingi toba namba da tene sanje je tu tse dan tembo shari bu janjo zamba zamba jembo baba jere ze wanju je meso reje bu kanla la shero je paru do chembo samo chebo chebo deba ida la baraja dege je meba da janju sembo sembo jembo baba jere se wanchu seda demba shari da de bola dege je meso shari bu reje bu Deje bomo kanla la shero je paru do chembo samo chebo chebo deba yeda la bara dawa jade kumbo ngabo deda laya rashin je tomba namba yanda jesu tao su tomba ho tomba ni su su lule tomba ni shema tomba ni le jang su shema yino deshin do so adam du she dan du je Nambara sheba na tomba ho shari bu de da wana tomba ni de tsini meba ma jeba ma ga tima meba tima da tewa tewa meba gawa meba ho shari bu de da wana tomba ni la su me soa me dushi luje me nambara sheba me mi me nawa me na me che me lu me yi me su me dra me che me Rome reja me chu me do mi ji ka me ba ne yi ji namba shebe kange pa do yang me do ma re ba se ba me ka shi sebe pa do yang me do so Tejen Dunge Wada Kunjung Wada Wada Lame Yishime Toba Mado Baya Medo Sheribu Tenda Wena Chanju Semba Toba Mebe Chir Shiraji Parudo Chimbala Tenji Nende Semla Tiba Rabba Mede Chiji Lole Shindo Dene Nyangele Debe Tar Chindo Duzundo Nambar Sanje Tamje Jan Shiraji Parudo Chimbala Dene Lana Meba Yanda Bar Sobe Janju Umbar Zoba San Jesu Teda Wena Shiraji Parudo Chimbe Nga Riba Chimbe Nga Lana Mebe Nga Miyambada Nyambe Nga Dunge Tamje Labu Shebe Nga Minzu na Dembara Shebara Chade Sheraji Parudu Chimbe Nga Meba Teya Ta Gade Para Gade Para Sangade Buddhi Sowa Sheribu Janju Semba Semba Jembo Tena Sheraji Parudu Samola Labara Jau Tene Chumde De Tingi Zin Tele Shinde Janju Semba Semba Baba Jereze Wanjula Leso She Chawa Chene Leso Rigi Gu Tete Shindo Tete Sidara Gyuji Temba Shindu Shiraji Parudu Chemba Samola Chebara Chade Teshin Sheban Jesu Yirang Ochumde Digi Je Ka Dene Sedan Temba Shari Dati Ajo Sembo Jembo Baba Jereze Wanchu Dan Tamje Dan Tembe Kur Teda Dan Hada Midan Hama Yidan Tesa Chebe Jidin Yirang Chomde Deje Sumba La Ngobo Te To
Thus I have heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgriha in Bodhgati, together with the great assembly of monks and bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahatattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, how should those of good family learn who wish to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is no other than form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formations, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are no spheres of the eyes, up to no spheres of the mind. There are none of these, all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these, all the way up to, there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all bodhisattvas hold to the wisdom gone beyond, and because there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas do dwell in the three times by relying on the wisdom gone beyond. Most perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as the truth, for there is no deception. The mantra of the wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, very good, O son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said, and then the when the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering, the world with its gods, men, and the gods and spirits, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. So in the noble discourse on the essence of the wisdom God.
Yes. 다 사포보게 된다. 진주. 아니 다 시고 여러 세상 다 진주. 자세 장주 생각에 쪄발라 주바 세다 진주. 아니 냠내 제약이 치돌라 아니 뭐 쪄발라 쪄발라 주에게 장주고 셈지 표현시해 봐. 아니 쪄발라 주고 치돌라는 튕진 상고야게 아니 소사 공위원도 아니 루고 당보다 니바니고 되게 아니 장주 셈지 표현당 아니 튕진 소소바 니되게 차진데 아니 무슨 땡기 여러 손을
And now we resume our Thursday evening exposition of the Way of the Bodhisattva, a presentation of the very trainings of the heirs to the Buddha, the Bodhisattvas. And as this is training in the charya of the Bodhisattva, the very practices of the Bodhisattva, the practice entails first the development of an appreciation for bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment itself. And with this following from this, the urgency and the requirement to personally accumulate supportive conditions for the development of the mind of enlightenment. So the first two chapters of the Way of the Bodhisattva concern themselves with the benefits and the accumulation of supportive conditions for the mind of enlightenment itself.
어떻게 다 당부 표현시고야지 아니 뒤제기 쪼아제비 치돌 뒤제기 전주선비 쪼버를 로베 쪼아제비 치돌 전주선비 표현시해봐래 아니 니바디네 다 전주선랑이 송화 쳐발라 아니 균진 소 대신 뭐 손놈도 대버 고고 열어서다 아니 전주선 송투에 치돌 아니 손놈도 소소야 그 차진 다 양라도 버디 세기 여러 디나네 다 당부 차쳐버디네 당부 쳐버펴버디네 차쳐버 다디네 디버샤 어디데 다 대신 좀 디버샤베가 다 루카도랑 줬더니 다디 시작고 여러 손으로
First chapter of the Way of the Bodhisattva concerns the benefits of bodhicitta for the purpose of developing in the listener, the disciple to be tamed, an interest in developing the mind of enlightenment. In order for the mind of enlightenment to be produced in a person, there must be sufficient merit in that person's store, autonomy and merit sufficient to conjoin their activities with the mind of enlightenment. In order to accumulate this merit, we engage in a 7-branch offering. The first branch, following this text, is offering. This is then followed by prostration and then confession.
어떻게 세다 디 늦어마다 디고 차체와당 쳐바다 차게 표현이 슈차버다 디버샤바 난 표현도 가능하다 다 대시 갭심바 디 디버샤바 뉴 디버샤바 될라야 디버샤도 될라야 아니 직박에 치주유고네 동아 단예바 치주체는 샤단다 아니 님부 돕시고네 샤단 이제 디나는 님부 톱시고 아니 디버 타바 체하게 거대 한다는 것도 셰심바들에서
Of the 7 branches, the first offerings and the second prostration or homage we have completed. We are presently attending to confession, the branch of confession, which involves mending or repairing broken vows and violations, and the application of the 4 antidote powers.
오야 다야기 네바스나다 디버들라 나란도 켈렘베기 랑기 켈렘베기 켈렌다 게웨 네바직 근데 란싱기 디바직다 디바직 요르세단다 란싱기 디바디나 타발라 니모토시 거레스 다 켈람베 네바 디바 타바 제발라 아니 치주체네 베나 소달기 돈바도 게웨 네바이나 켐부잘라샤 아니 자주sembe 돈바도 게웨 네바이나 상계다 자주sembe 군들에 치주체네샤 아니 가지 돈바도 게웨 네바이나 아니 도지창 다 수주고 라마 왕칸이 쉰디 왕 톱사게 라마 군들 라마야 라마 도지창도 면 대군들도 샤바 세워레스 치주진의 샤바치도 안 되래서
The mending of transgressions, or those actions we deem to be faults or violations, are transgressions that are transgressions of formal proscriptions and transgressions that are transgressions by nature. So the first are to violate some proscribed injunction, and the second is to violate what is known to be a natural law. And so for the first, violations of violations by prescription, in the case of the pratimoksha vows, the vows of individual liberation, taken before the abbot, they will be addressed or mended to before the abbot. And for the bodhisattva vows, these are mended before the Buddhas and the bodhisattvas. The Vajrasattva, rather the Vajrayana vows, are mended before Vajradhara, the preceptor from whom one has received initiation.
다 디바 소송 안한도 끝나다 룽아 예수님 주고는 사베 디바 요 디바도 조이나 아니 님부 톱시고는 마샤나 디바 다그마르치다 님부 톱시고는 샤오레서.
And those activities that are negative, which we engage in physically, mentally, or verbally, these we must address through the application of the 4 antidote powers.
오야 다 님부 톱시 스조 님부 톱시 데 라는 셈나 샤르초조 버레스 님부 톱시 셈나 네부 유나 아니 디바 샤단 내라고지 생기로 와자다 님부 톱시게 당부디 남바 순진베 톱스인데 거레스 니바들 땡기 톱 아니 숨바들 님부 군두체베 톱스 시바들 네발을 라르토베 톱스 이제 어디 장가디 맞추어지네 아니 네부 주나 아니 디바 샤두 잠발라양 아니 수미바 템보신 샤토르에서.
The 4 antidote powers should be clear to each of us in our mind so that we can apply them easily. And they are, first, the antidote power of remorse. Second, the antidote power of the support. Third, the antidote power of overcoming misdeeds through application of the antidotes. And fourth, the antidote power of restraint.
오야 단 넘버 순진베 톱싱이 삼로 칸데스 땅고레스나 아니 나라도 코바나도 두 로이나 두 쇼르바이나 아니 디부 베 야면은 시기요도 마시네 나기요바데 수수고 연구로 와 통으로 제가 뒤 통화나시 아니 예바디기디 니미가 다 디바다 니미 디발라 니미즈 통네 아니 다 통네 아니 거다 치마베 드랑기 냐 송고 동행요 남이기 데불라 냐 송케고 요바다 아니 디네 뇨에 데불라 아니 직다 라라 남이기 베 홍보도 마상와다 아니 룰라 내 마와 되게 연구 요바다 라이언스 내 사발 가고 요바 되게 연구 요바 오 되게 되게 님이 통네 아니 콜 교바 치투바 교연 통네 아니 교바 치투바 어디지 거래 손으로지
The antidote power of remorse is likened to the recognition that one has ingested poison inadvertently, and if one doesn't die, then one will certainly be sick, and in either case, one will recognize that ingestion of poison was a mistake, it should be avoided, and we'll see clearly that it is a fault to ingest poison. So similarly, when one recognizes that negativities are a fault, the fault is, or rather following from this fault, one falls into lower realms where fully ripened results of those negativities ripen, and they also ripen in later rebirths where one may not be in a lower realm, but one nevertheless experiences sickness and or enjoys continuing to engage in non-virtuous. When one recognizes that these things follow from negativities, the feeling of remorse that follows is the antidote power.
오예 다 님부터 없이는 당부도 섬당다 되지 다 니버디 땡기 톱스 다 땡기 톱싱에디 안다 두 코보나로 쇼르사바 유나 다 텔레 좀더 껴버 채고로 와 껴버 지도 좀 받다 껴버 제탑 멤버 땡으로 왔어 오예 멤버 땡 아니 껴보러 왔어 난 마시베 탑에 껴고 있나다 만나베 탑에 껴고 있나 껴베도 수 껴고서 멤버기 껴보러 어디나시 안가나도 다네 송기 동행을 껴 투니게다 껴디 멤버 쳐디 술에서나 아니 껴 군조 숨도 땡고로 껴 군조 숨 많이 밖에 아니 내 송기 동행을 껴 투야게 미바 가야 요 매바 인도 다껴 투니디 아니 껴네 군조 숨 어디라다 아니 랑게 내 송기 동행을 껴베 치돌라 아니 껴 투니 군조 인자 아니 콜레 껴 지어고레스 제가 그 땡기 껴쓰라고 그래서
And the second antidote power, the antidote power of the support, is likened to the way in which we seek out a doctor after ingesting poison, whether we find that it's near fatal or we are merely very sick. In either case, the urgency of seeing a doctor is apparent to us. And so likewise, when we recognize negativities cause us suffering in the lower realms, we look for protection from that suffering and find in the three rarities, Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the protector and the guardian capable of liberating us from the suffering of the lower realms. So these rarities protect and support us in our endeavor to escape the bondage of suffering of the lower realms. And so we entrust ourselves to these three rarities with that in mind.
Oh, yeah, that's in nimutopshiki sumba karesana. And nimukundu chebe tops, and nimukundu chebe tops in Indi, that nimbutoba cigarette, nimukundu chebe toba cigarette, Karina Jigorta, Kana Dicedex, and Kandishos, and Tangazo, member dance, and member top carriages, and man take man sour. Oh, man sour 30, and number soon to top the yours. 세상 인도 좀 맨 사와이나 고 쪽 투그래 맨 마선 쪽 투고 말아 진짜 디츠에 더디 말한조 가르쳐 왔으나 다예 밖에 예바 된데 랑이 줄랐다 지 룽아 이송 디베 간다 꿀루 삼바데 아니 뉴모 맞제 뉴모 디왕게 아니 저 룽아 이송지 저번에마다 제가 미기와 사샤바 되게 강할로 아니 다 겨이 미겨이 뭐 모신 될 교바체 아니 될 샤바체 아니 샤바체 아니 다 가르쳐 그랬어 뭐 아니 다 계획 다 겨도고로 동반이 공고를 자주고 셈 줄라 개바 제바다 어디도 제바도 아니 니 무군도 자주 셈다 되게 냠내 제바데 아니 니 무군도 집에 또 샤고 해서
The antidote power of overcoming misdeeds through the antidotes themselves is called just this, the antidote power of overcoming misdeeds through the application of the antidotes, or simply it is called the antidote power of overcoming the antidotes, rather overcoming the misdeeds. In either case, this is likened to visiting the doctor after ingesting poison and then receiving a prescription so that one may treat their poisoning. If one takes the medicine, then one will recover. If one fails to, one will not. So the taking of the medicine would be to recognize the fault of negativities, recognize that which influences or causes the manifest activities of body, speech, and mind that are negative are the mental afflictions. Those mental afflictions cause negative actions through body, speech, and mind. These are non-virtuous by the fact that they result in suffering. When one recognizes this, one is compelled to confess to these negativities and then recognizes that it is urgent that one begin the accumulation of virtuous activities. And these include meditation upon emptiness and development of the mind of enlightenment. When these practices are engaged in, this whole set of practices, meditation on emptiness and the development of the mind of enlightenment, are the third antidote power of overcoming misdeeds through the application of the antidotes.
다 이거 저 당부 숨들이 또 가르치는 교심 다 더고 두 콘도 침받아 이바 두 콘도 치는 수익격 두고 유명한 겹을 아니 겹에 시도 맨사고 이거 조강은 교심 코너 열다 되네 디제라 가르고도 돔셈 거 돔베서 봐 돔셈 예발을 날 도베 답스가 또 민라 예발을 날 도베 답스다 예발로 도베 답스다 그거 두사는 시기 여바다 나기 여바시 인도다 친중 병에 두추는 소로 투나야 두사게면 사베 아니 돔셈도 거르스 어제 돔셈도 중앙이나 아니 친중 고 두기 예바 세 두고로 와 어디나시 아니 랑기다 롱아 예수고 삼바 뉴몬바다 디 조와 가르쳐봐 이마 되게 정말로 아니 배 님이 이마 통내 아니 델레 타르바 쳐봐 진중배 뉴모게 조와도 삼바 강게자 아니 마고바 쳐고 삼배 돔슴 쳐봐디 아니 네발을 날 도베 톱서 톱시바디레 손로지.
The first three antidote powers have been likened to ingestion of poison, seeing the doctor for a prescription to treat the poisoning, and then the taking of the prescription as treatment for the poisoning. And fourth of the antidote powers, the antidote power of restraint, is, following the metaphor, to recognize that ingesting poison is fatal, and in the future one must avoid it at all costs. Even when threatened with death, one should nevertheless avoid that poison. And the commitment to do just this, the recognition that mental afflictions are the influence that causes negativities performed through body, speech, and mind. The recognition that these, the whole lot, are faulty and problematic. The recognition that one must liberate oneself from them, and the commitment to never engage in the negativities that they cause in the future. This, particularly, the commitment to never engage in those in the future, is the fourth antidote power.
다 한다 된 dom나 예심 당 dom심이 상바이나 아니 뭐 없이 이거 다 도야기 누가 담바다 도레스야다 또 이뭐 없이 그냥 지당 그 dom럽잖아 디시날 되고 그래서
These four antidote powers may be understood as four that are part of two major kinds, remorse and restraint. Through remorse and restraint, one embraces all four of these antidote powers.
다 뒤에 다른 것도 시험도 가르쳤다. 님부터 없이 제국이 열에 이나야 님부터 없이 제디 아니 맞아 지금 제마치기 로제마치기 아니 제일 최고 300인데 치슈 제바이나 되게 말았어. 세단 디 메디와 인자 다 디콜 미다와 테니 치워 템바다 대야 집에 치워 템바 대야 예버 치워다 남치 예매다 치베 세 아니 랑라 팬도 바디 아니 랑기 개와체바 최 제바디마도 시행기 그 팽기 매바 오 데리지 고는 제고고 요바디기 대야 치돌라 아니 샤베기 루 메제디기 땡기 어레서 놓지.
The four antidote powers are absolutely critical, but it won't do if we merely recognize them to be critical, but don't allow them to inform our actual actions and delay and procrastinate and imagine that it'll do to begin to employ these antidote powers later, next year. Because delay won't do, we engage in urgent meditations on momentariness and impermanence of imminent death. Death is imminent, but the time of death is uncertain. What is certain, though, is that at the time of death, the dharma, virtuous actions alone, will be of benefit. Because of these urgent meditations, the following verses concern themselves with just these.
어야 세상 가진 간서 된다 엄마도 직진이들라 다기 디과 마차와 모두 공부를 주베서 지들 딜 녀탈바 유도 뉴베 수지 잡도 서서서마다 남마시고라 이게 디과 샤바 치기 아니 신행에 손을 깨워서 써버지는 디과 샤야 고고라 그 말에 세상 배 뉴도 잡도 서서서마다 배 간담 마시 춘젤라야 디과 샤 투와 치고래 가진 어디 찍디 땡기 어려서
Verse 33 on page 42 says, "We cannot trust the wanton Lord of death. The task complete or still to do, he will not wait. In health or sickness, therefore, none of us can trust our fleeting momentary lives." Which points to the recognition that it won't do to delay confession and addressing negativities, because death itself may intervene, and after that moment, there'll be no opportunity to engage in confession in the lower realms. Later confession won't do. It is urgent that confession be undertaken now.
어야 다 근데 이도 뉴에서 잡도 서서 마시 순지가 잡도 sö나 양 아니 마시와 될라양 아니 드링 사님 시바다 지 로제마 마시와다 사님명 라나 가두 시기 유맥이 예바 이데미로 와 sikji tham kazi ta tamadi omadi ide miru chida desu bajada kola ide yo maras itemba sugangla dish drin shigi mara sanyi shigi mara drin shigi segi sugangla tse sungtuyagi ani itemba chajin kanya yo maras ko duji medawa inza tien koran medawa indu tela temba duji karina medawa indu ani tembu yo maras tembu meba inza ani tape 간제 차상 뒤제 담제 로부와레 게임 로부와레 인디 텔라템베 뒤제 담제 로부와 차들 이데메로 어쩌다 이데메로와 인자 아니 간데 베타 간다 디바샤바 대양 아니 치슈메바 단단히 샤투가 제약에 된다라 아니 다치 단다 이데메로 치다디 제다 마제 메드베 나다 메다 군지자 아니 로부 셀라 이메데스 제가 셀라 이데요 말에 제가 메디 아니 이번 샤바 대양 임부터 비고는 샤바 지고고 샤바 대양 산베 뒤뒤 제마샤기 산이 지기 산바데기 꿀롱 매바 단단히 지기 산베 타취베 꿀롱데 고네니 이번 샤워를 해서
We cannot trust the wanton Lord of death. The task complete or still to do, he will not wait. In health or sickness, therefore, none of us can trust our fleeting momentary lives. Thus, engage in confession now. It won't do to delay. Death is wanton Lord of death, meaning wanton in the sense that there is no trusting the Lord of death to come at this time and not that time, or that time and not this time. No one can predict with certainty the moment that death comes. And so death is named this wanton Lord of death. will always be unsure when this wanton lure of death will come. All is uncertain when all is founded on momentary and changing foundation. These things are compounded and impermanent, adventitious, contingent, and changing. And so confession must be engaged in without delay. Now is the time to begin this confession. There are no assurances in life, so engage in the application of the Four Antidote Powers. Later, I'll engage in these application of the Four Antidote Powers. Later, this intention is a mistaken one. The proper intention is to undertake this beginning now.
간다랑이 깨워 세마베 마시 공라 아니 디고 샤투와 그냥 시월은 예바 매바 인디 아니 뒤 다다네 치슈 매바 바 산이나 이스바 주주 장야 매바 다다네 샤고 요바 오 딘데 마샤바 이나 아니 네 랑라다 아니 데데 샤고 요바디 아니 랑게 세디 루부와레스 루부와 인디 아니 거기 대춘에 매바를 제단에서 다다네 샤워레스 다 디데샤 고고유나 아니 다 간데 샤워레스 다 알로티바 순셨어.
Therefore, these 2 points, purification must be engaged in before death comes. Furthermore, death has yet to come, but it will only do to begin this process of confession now without any delay. For life itself is fleeting. It is fleeting and temporary, and this gives this its urgency.
Oh yeah, that in the Indu Maranzo get that forget and then big bossing in the Dungi Judy and Digbarwa. Digbadi and another culture. Digbat Saya did Maranzo Digbat Saya de Tandachun and Mabachene. Digbat Sabag. Oh, the dig any some Lutangju. Digbat Saba the term Mabetonas, Digbat Saba Yiba. The dig Sabatilla. Ani Gyobachia Tila Anis Nalo subject or Mangosonga, they get much shugi.
Now, having to do with this, non-virtues are non-virtues by the fact that they cause suffering and dissatisfaction. We wish not to accumulate non-virtues, but our sense of regret and remorse for non-virtues that we do engage in, which are pointless, that have no purpose, these impress us all the more and lend a great sense of remorse to non-virtues. When we engage in these non-virtues, but they are purposeless, entirely pointless.
Oh yeah, that's an big tenda maybe to work on this side or is not that. Nyenda. So that nyenda lulongju. So any yidim room, rangi masheba, and tedala tene, and digba sayores, and the digba de saba, the pakubachin shabachi or rest of the tambu direction.
Now, there are several sections that take this up explicitly. For example, the negativities we engage in that are purposeless, but have to do with a preoccupation with friendship or with foes and foeship, with our body, with our resources. All of these fleeting and impermanent things, when they motivate us to engage in purposeless negativities, this produces in us a sense of remorse.
Oh yeah, that nobody cares na. Tangazo digbache digbasa shejo. Chikanazo lo pake kaza digbada ani ganga sa shejo ganga. Ta karichene saba tigedi ani susu da karichigesna. Susu chirudu ani pake digbada kaza sajo yudige ganga lo chembe yuzum jimado meba juwegi petembas. Pegone da ganda digbasha du da sha gobe gobatengi yore sonoja.
Now, all of the negativities that we accumulate, all of these, why have we accumulated them? How have we accumulated them? When it comes to the very moment of our dying, every last one of the purposes, the individuals for whom we did these things, have already become mere memories, yet the negativity remains. These individuals for whom we do these purposeless negativities become mere memories to us. This is made explicit in the verses and adds urgency to our confession and purification.
Oh yeah, that the indu that kadar tibasagi yuda. And Dibatan Ganga, the Zuganga Yidemirua, Metabe Rashi Yimbe, and Susu, Nyongusundu, Susu, that is Tubata, Tonga, Rangi Sheba, or Tende Ranga, or Tende Tindolo, Sheba Chene, and Tedal Jobachizu, Jobacheko, Sheba, rest for the response. Yidemirua, that's not Yidemirua, Tada, Musum, the Trube, Tedag to the Dibacheva, Jobas. Yes, but Yamada, Kangayata, Idemiru, Tadaya Musum, the Trubes, the Aza, Tadaya Musum, the Trube, Tedagi Tendu, the Bacheva Jovas. Rangi Dada Yenda, the Longju Zula, Tenerang, the Bus Saja, but the Musum to Gure, Tedag Tendu, that the was about the South Shini Jova Chetre. Most of us, I'm big call your big tone, I'm joke call. I like it, your Musum, your Yungurwa, or your was water.
Naming Jebati, Nyonyadi, Yamana,
Marma, you want them Dimarda. The Dibot Chesak Yurwa, Dibot Chesak Yuta. Any but the Rangi Dojag one in Yechesa, the Shedango on the Drachesa, the Suzu Gangalo, the Kandar Idemiro, Metawachin the Kadet, Meva Chadugua, or they didn't never chabading on the Muslim Tongurwa.
Also, explicit and the section of the text here is a remorse that follows from engaging in negativities for the purpose of some gratification through a friendship or some opposition to an enemy. In any case, a relationship, an engagement with individuals that we know, we can see clearly, we can hear as it happens, we know full well the situation of theirs and the relation and the person is changing. Nevertheless, engaging in negativities when all of these activities are changing and temporary, this causes in us a sense of remorse.
Oh yeah, that in there Rani Namchi Neba Meba, Masamba, Masheba. Any Dibacheba, any Jobas. Oh, Rani Susu Shige Shia Yoba, Rani Meba Chagi Yoba. Then did the Samro Madan of the Mashebe Ongi and the woman was higher. Oh, the any Jobachebas.
And there are also the activities we engage in, even though we ourselves are sure to die, the time of our death is uncertain, but we ourselves are sure to die, yet nevertheless we engage in negativities. And this too causes in us a sense of remorse.
Oh yeah, that is a subject to pass to that of Hong Triwayna, Manzuki, Harantu, Mizina, Yamne Cheagi, Neka Sashuchik, and Metaba Samet, Metaba Dushi, Metapa, Singedi. 아니 가지고다 최 가두치나야 최 제야로 꾸마다니 최고수 지도양 최디베 최야고 뿌다고 용야 아니 최 제산은 제마수 대부분도 지도 있나야 미다고 템바데 예버도 고고유 받디 아니 그 개침부이다 베티 마부 개침부 마 배자 마부 송고요 손
Now, all these sections, these aspects of the text, they make prominent for us the very important, the very critical contemplations that will do for us in this life. Most critical, most pertinent is impermanence itself, the recognition and formulation that compounded phenomena are impermanent. That compounded phenomena are impermanent is the original inspiration behind the Dharma. It is that which urges all forward into the Dharma. And then while all are engaged in the Dharma, it is that which further inspires and promotes the Dharma. And in the end, even when the results have manifested, impermanence in its idea is critical, remains vital.
야, 딱 지워 메타바 마테나 아니 가르치스나 단징 로직스. 단징 로제나 아니 아시그 말에 드링시그 말에 산이시그 말에 달로시그 말에 사마그 단징 로들레사레스. 한 단징 로 되게 다 다징어도 최치 마주야. 최 지단 최 제마주야. 대한 다단의 최 제마주야. 대주강가 균 수용 거 지고선 단징 아주 시그 말에 사베 딱바지는 산이시그 말에 달로시그 말에 samsung semnal tangzing sem shukchimbo yesan digi ani ngazo medabo gomtu ngare medabo gomatu ba ina ani chö che ya dan zu ta tüzül chi chö chi matu ya dan chö che ne pü ta bo mayo da ani bage dungen se ba ta dewa du ba yong matu ya kanga yuza zo chi tangzing lo de che ani tangzing lo de medabo gomaju o de che ne yong yo re so
Impermanence is critical as it addresses self-grasping that is so pernicious. Grasping at the ostensible self is pernicious because assuming that the self remains, tomorrow is considered a suitable time to practice, so is next year, so is much later, all because the ostensible self seems to be remaining. However, this clearly interferes with Dharma practice, prevents the original entrance into the practice of the Dharma. Self-grasping causes us to believe that the self continues to remain and will continue to remain through tomorrow and the next day. And this all vitiates what would be the Dharma practice when we do not realize impermanence, rather when we have no understanding or recognition of permanence, we are incapable of engaging in a authentic and productive Dharma practice. When we practice, then it isn't productive and successful, and the objective of ultimately accomplishing contentment for ourselves and the elimination of suffering is inconceivable, all by the force of the pernicious grasping itself.
야, 엄마 까담바 쪽에 그 미리 쳐버려 말에 새 진사저와 그거 미다고 진백 뒤시 배 맞이버 땜부지 예조이나 당한테 뭐 미다고 셈을 텐시 뭐 미다고 이 텐시면 아니 치고 냐면 가르치기만 딱고 아니 쳐버려다 딱고 냐면 지금 다세 새도 송사도도 어딘지 지금 요래서
Now the Kadampa adepts had a ready measure for the practitioner, the adept. What is the measure of aptitude in a spiritual adept? It is the measure of the presence and continuity of the recognition of impermanence. When that continuity of recognition of impermanence is in a person, that individual is an adept. And this was the ready measure the Kadampa masters had.
야, 다 그냥 아주 단다 subject 당고 셔야지. nyenda longju so yiden mirunga mashebe tedak dendo 아니 디바 사바데나 아니 샤오라 샤도 여바 치고로 여바 맞은 다기 말았다 여바 쳐야 지돌라 다 준주고 자와치 가르된 거랬으나 다 디네르다 다 이디 오마데로 탐지 벌데 차고버 다기 대달 마셰베 자다 민자 tun지치 디바다 만나서 체 소어디 서브젝트 템베 자오데레소
Now of these prominent points in the verses to follow, the first follows from what I've described as remorse for the activities we engage in for the sake of friends and our own bodies and our resources, which are themselves unreliable, are themselves changing. Those negativities that we engage in for their sake, without good purpose, are described, the remorse that's described in verse 34, which follows, doesn't it, here? And we must pass away, forsaking all, but I, devoid of understanding, have, for sake of friend and foe alike, provoked and brought about so many wrongs.
오야 다 탐지에 벌데 차고 바로 사 탐지 세대를 가리어레스나 다 랑기 예 다니 스트좀바 랑기 다 로팀바다 랑기 파마요를 다 자로 초보 가리 다 랑도 로팀베 초보 아니 비니제 가리는데 이거 예 직제 아니 롱주 스트좀바 나랑도 바게 예기 치도고 다 차고에 왕게 사샤보게 되는 노를 롱주 다 지 강바 아니 난게 다 롱주 나로게다 같이 뇌다 아니 난게다 강배 나로게 진제 강가라다 롱주 세로와 롱주 탐 롱주 소바 탕스 아니 디가라 가려서 나라도 통마 아메 코바는 마 개용되네 베시 기용하게 셔르 아니 풍부 디 탐지 아니 다 차고 봐서도 바샤네 버는 이제 아니 지부 아니 개와 지만을 들어가서스 지금 당보디 사무들이 땅으로 해서
And we must pass away, forsaking all. Forsaking all. All encompasses all relations with persons, with close persons, kith and kin, those who are our same age and friends, those who are relatives and close to us, family, parents, all of these individuals. All includes every possession, every resource we've ever come by, the home we own, and all the furniture inside, and all the rest. These are our resources. And we understand that too in or by all. And also this very body of ours, that is our very physical body from the womb until in the end we pass away, forsaking all, meaning all of this is discarded and we entirely alone proceed.
오야 다 데데 이디 다 다기 대달 마셰베 시기버데 다기 수즈마다 다 다다께와 미안도 밀루기 톱데니 베 랑라 최체기 톱단 차상 유니 제나 최두야기 뉴바 차상 상데니 최럽도 넘버도 베 셔럽 된데니 다다 다기 아니 가르치나 다 최단다 마제 거야디 아니 대달 마셰바스도 가르 마셰바스나 삼바 아니 군의 론지기 뉴모바 디바타 뉴모바 되게 군의 람베 좋아 룽아 예숨기 아니 디바 메게와 디기디 마셰바스 어디 순가 마셰베스 마셰베스 르긴제레 어디 순
But that I is the present human embodiment endowed with potential and power and native intelligence, all for the practice of the Dharma, all suitable conditions for practicing the Dharma. This is the I, but I devoid of understanding. Devoid of understanding what? The animating force of ignorance, enshrouding us in mental afflictions, which animate negativities of body, speech, and mind. And this, but I, devoid of understanding, and what follows is critical and is.
Oh, yeah, that's somebody Zadan, Minza, 20 children. That's our Sudama Rangi Niense. Minza was the Rangi Radder, that Rangi Nien Suma, Niengi Chitolani Bay, Rangi Bay. That's Suma goes back, Joba Chigro, Suma Chigre, and it got Niengi Chitola, that Rangi, the Tapshe Kayon Chigro, that Suma Chivas. That Minza was Shomba Chivas. Radulani Kapeja, 가르치 두고 돈네요. 가서 게도 얘기로 하잖아. 송화다. 껴봐. 자와로 송화 민자와로 껴봐. 제배 된지 칠스. 아니 디바. 다랑게 배 디바. 랑게 되자게 왕게 랑게 인 송외게 디바 장매 봐요래. 셰당고 왕게 셰랑게 민자와 달라베 네바베. 간제진 네바베 장매 봐 게도 봐. 되게 디바 나서 봐 제바 되다. 아니 나라도 디바 대다되기 아니 샤오레스 제가 디바 딱 처음에 버쳐야 되게 샤오레스 같이 당고 숨어도 시원이 되는 것도 있고 나다면 저 뒤지 디바 넘어 나서 제세
But I, devoid of understanding, have forsake of friend and foe. The friend is the one we inevitably protect, ally ourselves with, engage in a whole host of actions for the sake of supporting, and the foe alike. The foe we inevitably harm, we confront, we face off with. Because of friend and foe, animated by desirous attachment for the friend and aversion for the foe, we engage in countless negativities. Recognizing this, we confess to these and purify these. These three first lines may be understood in this way then.
Oh, yeah, that's the Bigwati, the Bigwati, the Masha Bayina, Ariores, no? Any rang Ganda Bigwati, any Jebu Dunge, Rangata, to Midu Dunge Chata, Yoyagi Judy, Rang Yula Kokain, the two Kovena song Sayena, and Rang Yaman, Shigri Yaman and Nagri, Chigiro, Dinashi, Dunge Chigro, Dinashi, that under the Zawa, the Mizawa, Zawa, Suada, Mizawa, the Magawa Chivadi, the Jadam, and Kondoni, Nimitigi, Karichigresna, Rani Pamba Chigre, Yason Geva Chigre, Dunge Geva Chigre. That Dunge Majive Tap Chiachito and Shawa Chigore, Yuva Chigores, or Yamedi Chigores, or this one.
Have, for sake of friend and foe alike, provoked and brought about so many wrongs. Failing to confess these mistaken actions, the result is suffering which we actually wish to avoid. It is suffering that results, just as when we ingest poison, we will either die or become very sick. Engaging in negativities, we will inevitably experience suffering. The inevitable suffering comes from negativities that we've engaged in as part of our alliance with friends and our confrontation and facing off against foes, both sorts of activities of which are entirely self-defeating in that they deliver us into the sufferings of the lower realms. Wishing to avoid such suffering, we feel remorse and confess to these negativities.
Oh, yes, that they do. 다 랑기 로 라야 아니 송와봐 아니 랑기 드라이스네 다 간다라 그게 좀바 쳐야 되게 간가 주 되자당 다무 또 티무고 티무 미시베 주미이지 티무 왕게 아니 남도 얘기 남도 되게 왕게 아니 되자 되게 랑기 녀지스 아니 티 녀딜라 때냐 콘조 스트라지스 딜라 메가 어디 녀디 송 라도 좀바 쳐봐 되리다 이따가 디버레스 제가 대다 디버 쳐봐디 아니 리바야한다 말에 너래가 껴를 너르레스 제가 디 쳐봐디 리기 말레스 다 미리베 템베게 아니 다 주주고 자와디 가르스나 민잔 남자 메주르싱 자와 남자 메버규 다자 메버규와데 대신 탐지 메버규 어디디 땡기어레서
So we ally ourselves with friends for their protection and ours. And we defy our foe. And these self-defeating activities are one and all caused, in the first case, by ignorance. Ignorance causing continuous improper attention that causes discursive thoughts that imagine scenarios of friendship through the mental affliction of desirous attachment, and scenarios, adversarial scenarios in which we defy foes, neither of which are correct. They're incorrect. The way in which they're incorrect is shown in the following verse. But all my foes will cease to be, and all my friends will cease to be, and I will also cease to be, and likewise everything will cease to be.
제가 근데 이게 다 민자와 남자 메버주스 민자와 남자 메버주와래 민자와서도 랑기 아니 다 드라디게장 다진 강도 다 알레 서브젝트 제일 마시비제 되고 다 민자와 남자 메버주스도 말함절다 수수고 메지나나다 직모마 수수로 마가와 친이 랑은 네버지니 다 저에 간다 망치야지니 다 매버 대자르스 로자르 시자르 제단 타요 말스 다 제단 델리인디 아니 콜 간다 콘조 갈레 매버 차르레 망치야니 매버 차차와레 가시니 매버 주어레 제단 콜 간다 델리인디 아니 콜 때니 당와체니 디버사고 윤세요 말스 직 타고레 손스
But all my foes will cease to be. The foe, the enemy, the adversary, like I've said, sketching out an outline, but let's leave the outline for now. Even in our life thus far, those who have harmed us, those who disliked us, most of them are gone. Most of them have passed away. They are no longer present, though maybe some are yet to go. Though this is the case, many have already ceased to be.
Oh yeah, that's all the member use. That's Suzuka Kawa Dao Suzuki Pay Hama Pets, Hama Ine, that Manchani, that there's in somebody. And it's Suzuki near Towina, you are to never cha. The listen that Kandar Manchani never Yurtsavar, Hachine Yurishimber. 세상 인류 아니 그 밖에 수수내게 배 pro보이 게 자와 인슬람 시우기 아니 차바께네 아니 니가 사고에 유세요 말했을 때 땡겨래서
And all my friends will cease to be. Those friends, namely parents, but friends of ours, some are still here, but many of these friends too have already disappeared, are gone. Or they're disappearing now, or certainly they will disappear. But we imagine in our desirous attachment to them otherwise.
that's somebody Daja never you a days, Rang Yanchis at the never child, Rang never jing the never child. Temas Rani Jam, and the Namjimoto, came me double danger, Namjimoto, chewy water, never child, but think it's our response.
And then follows the application of this logic to oneself. And I will also cease to be, as the foes will cease to be, and the friends will cease to be. I too, as well, and am temporary and impermanent, and will cease to be.
Oh yeah, that Teshi is that. Danye Suzu Tamje, that never Guagi, Mitabe More, Namsimato, Manch, Kade, never Guata, never Yursimbata, or Tindiki Mo Janya Res, Sedan, Deda Tamje, never Yugures, never Chagres,
Foes are this way, friends are this way, we ourselves are this way, all in the nature of impermanence and all facing imminent death. In that impermanence and imminent death, many of the friends and the foes have already ceased to be. Others are in the very process of disappearing, and all will cease to be.
Oh yes, Teja Mase, and it that Tamje never uses Tamje Dinalata Rangi, Nienda, Longjetan. Rangi Luigi, Tanji never shall be gone, Shivana, Chigwata, Sanga, Ganga Mitabe morning, never Yuguris, Mazuku Tada, never Yuguris, Mazuku Bay, Chewing Dras, Chewing never gets on the Congo Tabote, Namju Tabote, Betsy Buja, Lapsagi. The young, Butusa never chares. Yanchik Sujumodel, oh, maybe the Suzuki in the zone is the Yagi, Kowoy, Yagi Bay, Garoy, Yagi Bay, Pamais, and Chuzachimuchiadian, Mantia never Yursawa, Kaji never Yurshimbares, and the day part of Tanya Sutuyang, Massing at the young, Mamjimato never yours, not Tamji never yours. The dig part of the two, the never Chagi Yuna, that never Chadures, said that Tende 다 맞을라 고조가 매번 차기 레데 다 맞을라 가리요레스나 되차다 왕기 차과 제백이 딕베기 샤베 파자 안 이제 아니 네가 셴을 넣어봐치하다 나는 녀봐지 콘트롤 보면 셴을 넣어봐치하기 아니 다 딕바 사샤죠 오저 사죠 딕버디게 하대요레스 코란스 강어 로사나야 거기 사죠 딕버디 하대요레스 디버디 먼저 가원 드러내 당하랑도 수수 가원 드러내 로드 냠도 두고를 내도 냠도 대기를 예도 냠도 예용으로 세다 코 디버디 라운다 르 수수고 르 가관나시 수수 냠도 대대요 그래서
Each of these, the foe, the friend, and each oneself is impermanent and ceasing to be. And those one hurts, harms, attacks by the force of their aversion to them. Those individuals, those persons are ceasing to be, will cease to be. And those individuals, one engages in negativities through alliance and camaraderie, those friends that we call bosom buddies, those individuals we call our lovers, those individuals who are our dear mothers, these individuals too, are ceasing to be and will cease to be, and we ourselves will cease to be. And so all of these things cease to be. But what remains inevitably are all the negativities that we have engaged in for all of these persons who actually vanish. The non-virtues do not vanish. The non-virtues remain. They remain wherever we go. When we're in motion, when we're at rest, when we are sleeping, they all abide at our side, these negativities.
곧 되게 샤베 레기 남이 바자디 남에게 유대 저거 동해 마음을 저거 동해 진통이 때 되고 되게 아니 소소그 류기 팀만 나신지 아니 류기 pendant 아주 류기 아주 그 류기 외셔를 류기 지나스도 지나나지 본념도 도두념도 내용으로 왔어 나도 아주 누구 도두다는 수 지나대 념도 누구도 왔어 지나시 아주 념도 내용으로 했어 제가 내용도 아니 맞아 되네다 랑기 류대샤 다대샤 녀대샤 차네 거기 싸죠 디버팅 아주 념도 내용으로 했어 근데 어디서 제만 디버티기 원기 아니 맞아 제만 다 동해 깨버 수수 그냥 손을 깨버 제바다 맞아로 됐으면 막 깨버서 류를 나자 용야 아니 계속 강가로 용야기 유 다다 차단 차배 왕기 예 병화다 아니 다음에 왕기 잡히고 계속이 바자되기 때문에 아니 맞아로 다 동해되게 깨버치기 어렸어 제가 근데 이제 동해디 근데 동해 깨버 쳐도 디버디 다다바 샤바 맞잖아 공화도 념도 내용으로 제가 샤바 쳐버렸으니 뭐도 없이고 샤바 쳐버려서
These negativities are the cause for fully ripened results to follow, which manifest in suffering. They accompany us wherever we go, just as our shadow follows us wherever we go. They are a stain on us. They are an inescapable shadow trailing us wherever we go. Everything else is left behind, but always inevitably tagging along is all the accumulated non-virtues that we have ever engaged in. And these send us into the suffering of the lower realms. They cause distress and agonies in our future. They inflict our bodies with all their illnesses. They cause the perpetuation of the agonies that follow from desirous attachment and from anger and aversion. They are the very present cause of future discontents. So we confess to them and address them, purify them through the application of the Four Antidote Powers.
알아서 배낭 알아서 우리 버렸다 바게다 한다 디버디기 샤버 제발라 다고 디벌 디버이 뭐저 디kyun이 뭐다 디기 디부 중에 진기요 보다 어디서 강가랑이 예 다랑이 레 개와치나 대화 연구요 보다 랑이 레 디버치나 동해 연구 보다 셰바 맞잖아 아니 이게 간다 교바치 간다 보게 샤바치 투구 말아서 교바치 얘기 말고 교바치 말라 그 통으로 연된 통으로 연다 연된 마통나 아니 제수이란다 교바생 개투야요 말아서 다 교바치 제발라 아니 디바티는 교연도 통 디베기 디부 동해도 이마트 통 어디데 랭이 제약 싫었대 거래 손으로는
The negativities realized to be negativities, the negativities and all of their drawbacks, the drawbacks, namely the manifestation that they cause of agonies and discontents, the recognition that virtue is virtue by merit, the contentment that follows from those activities, and non-virtues are non-virtues by merit of the discontents that follow from the activities. Failure to recognize this is also the failure to ever make possible a sense of remorse. Where there's no remorse, there's no impulse to confession, to addressing negativities. With remorse, which is the recognition of the downfalls and drawbacks of certain activities, and rejoicing, which is the recognition of good qualities worth celebrating, an intelligence, a discriminating intelligence is required for the production of either sentiment.
근데 세다 빼놨다 말한도 세대기 이기도 수수를 류 송야 제발라 이마이나야 아니 즉 수수를 류 대외 치도를 아니 고야 매들을 매이바 모션 이매 인사 매이바랑 그랑 팽기요 받다 아니 랑 고고요 받는데 셰베 거네 매이는 술랑기로 와다 도이는 아니 고랑 누구요 셴 파 유고로 와서다 그랑 팬바다 내바기 안데 내일이 남들 집에 싫어를 보고도 와 시럽되면은 그 두다 매 예치 두고 말어 제단다 자와 춘주 랑게 류직 숭해야라야 되게 남주 시럽 보고 이나 땅 아주 가르치고 왔으나 동해 뭐고 대화고 배 땐도 대한배 땐도 대화 근데 토비하게 치도는 아니 냠네 로좀 지기고 이들 아니 맞으라 대치쇼 가서는 아니 치어라도 남직이 시럽 생에도 거래 근데 시럽 생에도 아니 내 얘기다 예디기 랑도 제시마 이베기 드부 동에 계획이 드부 대화 이번 리스트 비셔를 버렸어. 제가 들은 아주 다들 교바 제야라 담보 알레 상라. 하리 버스나 이거 샤야가 치도라. 너놈다 가도 개월 치고로 개월 년에 치고 개월 치고로 상라. 이렇게 개선 대양 아니 치어라도 남직이 시럽을 줘도 제보고 줘유나 아니 개선이 pyuta고 아니 개와 제바가 개월 로투야 어디를 유바디 아니 처럼 남직이 싫어 줘단 제 아니 라기다 때 너는 잡아다 아니 차차와 쳐박고 근데 이번이나 아니 이게 강에 개와 양타고 로투야 유바 차기 해서
Now, even in the comparatively trivial concerns in our life for the health of our body, just for our physical health, when we wish for sense of physical well-being, all for the sake of that physical well-being, we discriminate between diets and prescriptions and supplements that are beneficial and those that are harmful. So therefore, in order to support healthy living in a trivial sense, even discriminating wisdom, some discriminating intelligence is required so that one is able to discern what may be toxic and discriminate that from what may be healthy. This requires some discriminating intellect. Without it, one isn't even able to support physical health and well-being in the most trivial sense. But more profoundly, the wish for lasting contentment, the wish to avoid suffering. And within the wish for contentment, a wish for constant, uninterrupted satisfaction and contentment. And the trainings that support achievement of that, all the more do those require discriminating intelligence. And that's the discriminating intelligence that finds wanton or lacking non-virtuous activities and finds constructive, virtuous activities. Discriminating intelligence is what discerns and discriminates between virtue and non-virtue, what is constructive and destructive. And this informs the attitude that is remorseful. When negativities are recognized to cause suffering, the need for purification, the need to address those is acknowledged, and furthermore, through the intelligent discrimination of the purpose and value of virtue, one conjoins their discriminating intelligence that recognizes the value of virtue with the very practices that are part of the accumulation of virtue and are fostering a virtuous outlook. And those are activities such as prostration, paying homage, making offering, and the rest. These are all assisted and supported by discriminating intelligence.
Oh, yeah, that thing share the CG, comma, the Omadi, and that, that's Sunyam to Jarayina. 아니 다 먼저 그 가르치고 그래서는 다 거기에 수수비 생 남도 왕 너무 시비 몽바 디 왕기 남도 시게 남도 디기 왕기 네 마스라 네네 도보 네 파마스라 제가 차과 차단 로게 이모디게다 다 비네 코둘로 때스 만지고 중요하더라 콘도 슬람이 베다 코다 콘도다 근데 랍제니 아니 누구디 파츠네 아니 수수베 시단게 콘도게네 아니 디왕 콜 내어봤다 무슨 내어봐 무슨 게임하다 눈지 군지가 되게 왕가 아니 디바사 다 디바 마고사기로 왔어 디바사게 돼 이네 디바사냐기 코 나도 생각한가 근데 매번 차야래서 이마이나다 가르치기서는 레디 사베 왕기 다 랑라 수술라 레디 제부 제만 남이 제부 동에 남이기 제부 내 손도 깨그래 유튜브 제부 랑라 옹보마 상와 룰라 내나 상황 보여줘 아니 지 가다 룽바베 가다 세고 쪼고 제네야 아니 딜라 소베게 다 간다 수수베 안조 레사야라 가우요 봐 오, 진짜기 아니 제부 넣어야매 봐. 용기로 제가 그 용기 요바 인사 다디 레디 사베게 레디 기디 강가로 다 수수게 배 지금도 당에 너르샤 당에 레사바 가리나 드림베 땡기 구조 숨기 본도도 더 배경에 손으로 맞게 디고되게 샤바 치기 삼네 다지 님부 똑시디 걔네 샤바 제토나 아니 라라 디고디 다기를 다바이나 제부 동에 다 말했어 제가 최라도 남주 시럽이 유나 아니 가르치겠으나 아니 아들 레 기디 다버지 다나 아니 디버티 다나 가르치나 콜 깨월리 말았어 콜 깨워 말이나 콜 나와 치워야 요 말았어 제가 티 메주 좀 아니 콜 들어와 생각이 용구 여러 제가 티치도라 님부터 시스템 매도 내가 레송을 마무사만 잘왔습니다 어떻게 근데
So the preceding verses and the verses to come, when we actually apply them to our living spiritual practice, that practice which confronts pernicious ignorance, which causes discursive thought, that imagines implausible scenarios of absolute adversarial relationships and absolute alliances with friends. Such imagined scenarios then, through the mental affliction of desirous attachment, creating a false sense of community of our own, which is contrasted and which defies that group that displeases our own, which we call the other, that we will defy and retaliate against. These two groups all cease to be. These two group scenarios cause any number of negative actions. And these negative actions then toss us into miseries that we inherit in lower realms. We inherit them as the actual ripening of the result in the lower realm, but also the ripening of the result that conforms with the cause in the experience, that is sickness and a want for full faculties, and also in the result that conforms with the cause, that is inheriting an enjoyment for engaging in non-virtue and a relish for non-virtue, inheriting that as a result of one's non-virtues. These negativities remain with us, and we must recognize with some intelligence that this is not a fit state of affairs for us, that this is not productive for us, that this is not okay, and that we would prefer to address the deluded activities through application of the antidote powers, in particular by relying upon the antidote power of the support. And when we do this, this eliminates, this allows us to entirely extirpate the negativities that would otherwise remain. And when those are thoroughly extirpated, the eventuality, the determined consequence too, is thoroughly eliminated. And so this is the course of action that would be decided upon by an intelligence that recognizes that negativities condition cyclic existence, and that there's no deconditioning cyclic existence apart from addressing the negativities that are perpetually re-inherited in cyclic existence as inevitable sickness and death. When that deconditioning occurs, this is mukti, this is moksha, this is liberation, and it is achieved through the application of the antidote powers, the four antidote powers. That facet of the verses, that is the way in which all persons and objects on behalf of which we engage in negativities become themselves mere memories, that facet we will leave for next week. And now we can turn to Q&A. So if there's a question, please share any question. And so now if there's no questions about the four antidote powers, in fact, some of that presentation of the four antidote powers remains still ahead of us.
Yeah, I'm only yes, I
Thank you, Geshe-la. This is a question from Sujata. The question is, could Geshe-la explain the difference between mukti, moksha, and nirvana?
다들 아니 남바를 좋아 직제 타르바 직제 아니 양인의 대바세리의 숨기 개발을 계시기 서보시니 견나로 지슈디요 수자되게 다 아니 남바를 좋아 타르바 다음 양인의 대바
이래다가 디아볼다 양엘의 대바세 저와 number 12 생도 number 12 생이디 아니 다 산지지 고관을 잡아 하고 저번이가 타서나 아니 number 12 지디서 한번 다 양엘의 대바세도 좀 코하기 주 유무체로와 뒷방소나 아니 양엘의 대바서 코 양엘의 대바세도 양에디 코아사 코알의 대바인가 양엘의 대바스 타르바드 다 집어 코아제 코알의 타르바인가 타르바스가 어디 데서
Good. Nirvana, mukti, vimukti, and moksha. Nirvana, rather, mukti, vimukti is the state of Buddhahood. It is the thorough elimination of the two obscurations. With the thorough elimination of the two obscurations, thorough release is achieved, vimukti. Nirvana is the transcendence of the mental afflictions that are the cause of samsara. Their transcendence is nirvana. It is the transcendence of suffering that is samsara. And moksha, liberation, means the same. It is liberation from samsara. And many others.
I have a question about a phrase in the Heart Sutra that haven't found anywhere else, where it says that karmic formations lack inherent existence. And I just wonder, does that imply karma lacks inherent existence? And what is the relationship between karmic formations and karma?
I
haven't seen that in other translation.
Dani şerefin bola. Ceza. De lady le seridi. Le Koran. Hani rangshingi trupe tomba. Re sangogurbe. Hani çıkça. Düçe seridi dan. Le. Deni çıkparve. Çıkparve. Hani di karasani le di rangshingi trupe tomba. Hani 거디 랭거르베.
코디 투어 수인이 차서 주제다 레슨도 어다디 주제다 레슨이 this 지고지게 말해서 뭐지 다 주제 생에디 어저 배남미게 통해 거기다 주제 생에디 어저기 다 간다 심중그 초지기 제력이 참 시고로와 주제스 어서 아들 뒤체 봐서 뭐 아주 그 잘라도 있는 루를 저거다 오단 지 내가 고좀 거이나 어디기 온게 아니 고 잘라들 예 제 밥지 제지로 뒤시스라고 와 뒤시 아주 지나들에서 레슨이디 뒤시다 저어요레스 이네 지고지게 말했어 레슨이디 아주 그 코알 계지기 네다 유목을 왕게 다 룽하기 레 제샤주기 이주가가 이루와 룽하기 레즈도와 미다나기 레즈도 레레 아니 디줄에 뒤제스가 말 하서 오늘 뒤제스 인스타 말 레디기 한 뒤체와 내가 자와 뒤체와 이와 근데 내 남자 뭐 주로 봐대 좀 내체와 이와 있는 레 코란 거기다 뒤치 생각을 말했어. 어디 아니 동반이 상무당도 레티양 다시 동반에 봐 상무당이 동반이 공도 최 탐제 동반이 상무당으로 와. 어서 뒤지를 나버셔 가가 동반에 동반이 수 동반을 세는 지고 지금 거면 이제 손없어. 동성모 동반이 수수도 대나시 상무당의 지고 당으로 손없어.
There are two parts to that question. The first, whether karmic formations and karma, or karmic formations and activity are the same. And they are not identical. Karmic formations are biological endowments of sensation that function as secondary minds that serve to arrange and orient us in sensation. And so they may be the visual faculty and the rest. They're connected with activity, but these karmic formations and our activities are not identical. The activities that are karma are the causes for perpetuation of cyclic existence. That is, they are the activities caused by mental afflictions that are activities, actions of body and speech, especially the actual activity of body and speech influenced by mental afflictions are karmas. And these activities may be the sort of gathering together and arranging, but that gathering together and arranging done physically is not identical to karmic formations. The second part, the emptiness of karma itself, just as karmic formations and consciousness are all said to be empty, and all phenomena are said to be empty, and form is said to be empty, and emptiness too is said to be form. The same thoroughgoing thought is to be applied regarding emptiness here. Karma is the larger category. Karmic formations are the larger category in which karma falls. There are karmic formations that are not karmas, but there are no karma that are not karmic formations. No. No. A pot is the larger category, larger than golden pots. Similarly, karmic formations are the larger category, larger than karmas.
Ini 是呗，那怎么弄的？下次搞个什么吧？
那你一起去说不去，
我也去了。
一起去说不去。哎，你这。对了，你经济了嘞，你经济了嘞，现在点呢？那得식지 아니 닝든
친지로를
빠르스나
아,
직선
친지로를 양아도 토랑구이 내셔와. 토랑구이 나와서. 네, 저런 뭐 시험도 잠바 단마 거기만 시도 잠바. 아무 거는 네 표준서 뭐 취 표준서 뭐 유 표준서 뭐 콜 기준가 시에살. 아디네 수 동바오 세대 수 동바오 세대 저런 뭐 되게 뉴든. 아서 되네마 뉴든. 저런 뭐 동바 더다서 되나 수 동바오. 수 동바오 세. 수 동바오 또나. 아니 저런 뭐 전다 또. 아서 되게. 네. 이제서 다 되네마 가리어 남을 자리였다. 아무 소름을 자. 아니 근데 저런을 자. 근데 토름을 근데 거는데 밀럼 자자. 아. 어저께 삐야 다 가데 para도. 다다 친지로를 쓰는 양한테 다르진 것이. 아, 최남이 니로 무슨도 통사나. 친지로를 다르시나? 아니 양한테 때부터 콜 녀송이 동행을 타는다. 녀송을 타버렸어. 어서 녀송은 깨먹고 저거 통사했어. 지금 양한테 때부터 다르지도 딱고 디네선데 콜 말이야. 녀송을 깨워 이거 말 콜을 깨기 말했어. 어디다 어디 돈을 튀어오라고. 주니 대번이 된 통사네. 아니 땡녀송 동행을 가야 콜을 깨워 지금 말했어. 돈을 씌워. 어디 돈을 내시워.
네 진지로래라. 진지로래.
진로되는 양.
진지로바니 진지로바디. 아니 덴센.
덴센샤. 어디.
그래. 알았어. 좀 계시나?
신일로 신의
알아야 돼. 네. yes. 계시나? What is the sort of essential interpretation of this line? And because there is no obscurity of mind, or rather, passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. What's the sort of the heart of that verse's meaning? Passing utterly beyond falsity. Passing utterly beyond falsity indicates the achievement of the path of seeing. Passing utterly beyond falsity indicates the achievement of the path of seeing. In the context of the Heart Sutra, there are the 5 perfections. There's the perfect place, the perfect dharma, the perfect retinue, and the rest. These 5 perfections are the context for the Heart Sutra. Now, the condensed meaning of the Heart Sutra is found here in form is empty, emptiness is form. This is the condensed meaning of the entirety of the Heart Sutra. When that is fathomed, the entirety of the Heart Sutra is fathomed. The Heart Sutra concerns the 5 paths that are the paths of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation and the path of no more learning. The path of no more learning. Now that path of seeing is achieved when the abiding nature of reality as it is fathomed. And this is nirvana. This is the transcendence and liberation from the suffering of the lower realms. Never again, with the fathoming of the mode of abiding of phenomena, is one compelled to be embodied again in cyclic existence. With the achievement of the path of seeing, rebirth is no longer necessary. And this passing utterly beyond falsity, it might be said, the falsity is grasping at true nature. Thank you.
셔러님 보고란 대강들 남가를 자시하다 남가를 자는 소람 소 담보 토노 동번이 된 거 제발을 하는 손놈 싸베지도 소람 지도 싸야 지도 담보 대신 직제 이네 다 졸람 또에 토놈 동인 모습도 또 벌어 차디체 지도를 남로베들 졸람 저vel 남들 동이 또 차디체 남나고 아니네 동인 모습도 또 벌는데 토놈제 토놈 통을 남데 제만 주고 참배 무슨 그 용화들이 양양 공배 땅한테 고람 아니 다른 남자들 열로 먹고 그 탈신 발로 두고 있는데 밀루람 어디 다 방진이 많지래
The practice is that follows the axioms of 5 paths. They are the path of accumulation. A path is a path. The path is of accumulation. The accumulation being the accumulation of autonomy and merit that will be sufficient one day for penetration of emptiness. That's one section, the accumulation of the autonomy for penetrating insight into emptiness. The second path is preparation. The path of preparation is preparing the way for penetrative insight into emptiness. The path of seeing is the penetration of emptiness. The path of meditation is the repeated, direct recollection and penetration of emptiness. And the path of no more learning is the state where such repeated exposure is no longer in the training. So now we can gradually conclude our teaching.
Yeah. Yes. Rendo bele toni pada yamba gaje sabate lome mare jedon roa nande jave ombo da juje tema sumbe sero kondo yang jambe yang sewe jesone tembe remba kozan namje jo rūpe jenam nyeje cho, rāngi jishin tobe lamje ne, shudra tsewe chanwe tabye je, rūpe yige mumba seje ne, jewe tenpa yure tenyu je, tenpa renje choge makyaba, chabja nyamba yuwe chodere ne, Inje chenpo yirabu jewa sho pende teje sewar jeba teje jewe menjun chile le ru chanju lamji rinpe yang hadu namji yila pede shin jewe tseba rinpu kyangyu je lasa dube dunyin duje je kege seje meda mene Zera kundu yawe ngapa yi namda landa jawa mayurji kanze tibo shola sujurji sujin rula zumba liyi tude namji chatu chocheji raji gyadu chugun gyagyoji.
From my 2 collections, vast the space that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, May I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my life, Manjushri. May I find the best of the path of the complete teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings, with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time, with my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined. May I offer this treasure of happiness to aid all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty. May oceans of prosperity spread them.
Nagi Jini Sabe Gewa Di Denan Rwa Guna Kebara Jizun Lozan Jamba Yi Tenve Nimbo Rindu Seje So Kare Rawe Korwe Shinkande Penda Dewa Malu Chungwe Jere Dewa Denden Gyantu Yi Chabe Side Paradu Tengir Che Jambe Babu Jidare Jimba Tang Kundu Zangbo Deyan Deshinte Deda Kungi Jesu Dalo Chi Gewa Deda Tamje Rabdu Tuzun Jebe Gewa Tamje Ji Mowa Gangla Shoshi Dagi Gebe Tawan Dikungyang Sambo Shuje Rabdu Chanju Simcho Pake Prana Yirchi Jewa Nyamba Mewaya Omne. I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chinese and vessels. Please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadruti realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue, with the dedication praised as the best, by the victorious thus gone ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva. May the supreme jewel of Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Thank you.